Okay, today's Saturday, 11:45 p.m. It is January 17th. Today, uh, I'll get straight to the point. I got intimidated today. I got intimidated in trading today. What I normally do is, um, while I'm waiting for a trade, what I do is I play a cell phone chess with chess.com, and I was trading. I was playing, and then I had my queen on one side, and I had my horse on the other side, and and it was supporting a pawn. Then the opponent uh, moved one of his pawn 2 spaces, forking my queen and the horse. And I looked at that and I go, "Wow, where did that come from? Right? Where did that come from?" See, I never felt I never felt like I was played. Okay, I never felt like I was played. And then I went on YouTube and I saw now Magnus Carlsen has his channel, and then he's playing chess. And then there's another guy named Eric Rosen who's an international master, which is probably way, way, way below the skill set of Magnus. It is. And so I saw this guy who's an international master lose uh, two in a row, two different opponents who are of similar international masters. He lost. But when I switched over to Magnus Carlsen, when he's playing, somebody with even higher rating, he was able to handily and easily beat that other person, right? In most cases, in most cases that I've seen, and rarely does he lose, right? And if he does lose, sometimes it might be due to time and things like that. So I saw that, and I've never been intimidated. Uh, I've never been intimidated. I've never been intimidated because it's a foolish thing not to be intimidated by what's going around. Okay, intimidation is a process of recognizing, becoming conscious of whatever is in front is sufficiently sophisticated enough to handedly hand me down, hand me a loss. That's what intimidation is. Okay, so it's something that I've never become conscious of. I never realized it. Okay, I've never for the past 5 years I would lose and I would get upset, but I would never be intimidated. I would never be. The right word is intimidation. I would never be intimidated by the trades that I was taking. I was never, which meant that I was essentially a fool because I should have been intimidated. And Al Brooks says you should seriously consider the market as a very wise old man who has been who is an expert at trading. And so I need to be intimidated by the stature of the market. It was foolish of me, okay? It was foolish of me not to be able to see that how I was incapable of seeing what the market is. This is something that I became aware of now that I decided to see after I start to peel off the shiny things. There's a shiny things in the market, right? There's a green here, there's a red here, all the money's flashing and stuff like that. And some of the YouTube people they say, hey, once I stopped uh, once I stopped, what is that, gambling, then I started to figure out how to trade. No, he said this. Once I stopped trying to make money, then I started to make money. Okay, that's what they said. Many of the traders talk about that. They say like, once I stopped trying to make money, I started to uh, make money. Here's why they do that. They do that because when people are so focused in making money, they don't want to learn. They just want to make money. But if I don't want to make money, I put in the time to learn. And what I've noticed about these traders, they know things far more than I do. They have the skill sets. So there's this guy who's from Australia who's a trader, and he stated that he was like $160,000 in debt after the first year or two. And then when he flipped his mind about doing things that a novice trader would not do, okay, taking the other side of what the novice trader would do, then he started making money, right? So then I realized, then I thought to myself, he's been saying that all along, even 5 years ago, okay? And then I started thinking about my ex-wife, okay? She's what, like I think she's about 5'2". She's about 5'2" tall. And she essentially is, she's essentially athletic, and so she's skinny, right? And so she's small. But what I've noticed, now that I started to figure out what's really going on, is that sure, the person is very smart, but what's behind that frame, the brain, is a sophistication that is far greater than I am. Okay, I may be a little bit taller at 5'7¾", right? Five. Now that I'm older, I'm like 5'7½". I'm a bit taller, and I'm heavier. I have more muscles, but the muscles are on here, not here. Okay, and so I thought to myself, there's this movie star, the movie star, and there's this movie star, and she sung this song. Uh, and she's a small person, okay? So her name is Kristen, I think. Okay, so her name is Kristen, and she's a small person. But this guy who is her husband, Dax, is like twice as tall as her, but he shows an immense amount of respect for her because he is intimidated by her. And he was being interviewed once, and he said to the reporter, she would take a cigarette, unfiltered, and just draw it in. Okay, I used to be a smoker, so I know what that does to your lungs. But she did that, right? And so she may be small, but whatever inside her is very, very intimidating, right? And so then I started to like, here's how naive and foolish I was, okay? Here's how foolish and naive I was, right? I would take all the money that I had, and then I would put it into trading, and then I would lose it. And then I would repeat it over and over and over and over. And 5 years has passed, but I still keep doing it over and over and over and over again. That is a foolish behavior because I was doing something the same way, but expecting a different result. That's called being a fool. Okay? I now finally understood what a fool is. Then I started to somehow, I don't know how it happened, but maybe God works in mysterious ways, and that's why I'm seeing this. Then I started looking at the politics. And this Senator Warren, I think that's what her name is. She's manicured very well. And she looks like one of those grandmas who could be, she could be one of those, she could be one of the grandmas who will be like taking care of the grandkids and doing the cooking, baking pies and things like that. But when she says something, she is an evil human being. She says it with such an evil and cunning kind of a way that she puts it. It just blew my mind. And so then I thought to myself, well, market is very, very similar to that. Market is alluring. You put money in, you get money out. Okay, you put money in, money out. That's the whole principle. It's so beautiful, the market, right? The market is so beautiful. I could access it anytime I want on my becking and call. I can except for weekends and things like that, right? But when I'm trading, except for holidays and things like that, but when I want to, I can tap into it anytime I want. Okay? And I can risk it as however much I want. All right? That is the market. And then I started to get intimidated. Okay? So I started getting intimidated about what the market is. Okay? Somehow I figured out there is some intimidation factor in trading because I don't know something and I'm trying to make money from something that I don't know about. And so that automatically tells me that I'm doing something wrong with the market. So then all of a sudden God pointed me to this guy named Tom Holland. Apparently he's one of the he's Tom Holland. Okay, so he's let's see, uh, and he was interviewed on Trading Nuts or something like that, right? He was interviewed with Trading Nuts, and he said this. He said this, which I would never have gotten 5 years ago, or even 4 years ago, right? He said this. He said this. Tom Holland. Okay, and he said this. He said he said he said um, the setups are already out there. All that information of the setups are out there. That's what he said. And what people work on is realizing the psychology component of trading. And I heard somebody else say that too. Somebody else says that once somebody becomes aware of the market, what needs to be worked on is the psychology. Okay, it's the psychology component of it that is showing maturity in trading because all the setups are already out there. Setups are already out there. That's what he says, right? And so I looked. Then I really listened to that, and I said, "Well, I'm for the first time in my life, in the trading life, I became intimidated by the market. It's something that I was never intimidated. Okay, I was never intimidated. I realized that I lacked something in my trading. Okay, I finally figured out my all the angles of my psychology. I did it backwards. I did it backwards. I resolved my psychology. And so now when something happens, I go, oh yeah, that's why. That's why I did that. Yeah, okay. All right. So it doesn't mean that I've completely fixed it, but I'm aware of it. Now I'm working on the setups to balance out my psychology so that I can make the trades. But I finally realized that I'm intimidated of what I'm seeing because I'm able to now see see so when I look at a snake, it's venomous. Okay, the black mamba or the green mamba is the deadliest snake in Africa. Okay, it is the dead. I mean, it'll instantly kill a lion instantly. It's that the venom is so powerful, and if somebody gets bitten by that, the person doesn't have much time to live. Maybe 15 to 20 minutes, it's gone. Yes, the rattlesnakes have venom. It's small. It's small. It's small. Okay? There's no intimidation factor for me in the past based on the size. Size didn't matter. I was looking at the physicality. I was just looking at the physicality of whatever the thing is, and I placed because I thought something that was big, something big, something big is more powerful and more able to cause destruction. Right? That's what I thought because I was living in the world of physicality. Then, then just today, after living on Earth for 56 years, I realized something called being street smart, right? Being street smart. So you could have this gang leader who's maybe like 5 foot tall, who has this Napoleon complex, who could be running the whole gang, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's somebody that's and big physically big, okay, right? because it's all up here. And so I realized I realized what being street smart is. I had no idea. I'm essentially divulging how innocent I was. Okay, until today I realized, whoa. So today I finally got intimidated by the market. I am intimidated. Okay, because I know what it can do. But before, what I would do is it would do something, and I go, oh my god, right? But now I said, oh yeah, it's gonna do something, but okay. So what's the difference between the past and now? Is that when I started trading, I would lose something. I go, oh shoot, and I'm upset. Okay, I made a mistake. Uh, I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't realize how much I didn't know. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize how little I knew about trading, because there's dual components of trading. The 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 technical parts of trading, and then there's the psychological part of trading. And so when those two things are resolved, then things become a lot easier to learn. Okay, to learn and get to the point where I become profitable. And so I realized, so before I would lose, I would like put 5,000 bucks in a single options trade, and I would let it ride. Sure, I was afraid, but I was not intimidated. Does that make sense? I was afraid. I was afraid, but I was not intimidated. Okay. I would like place a trade in there, and I go, oh my god, what's gonna happen if it moves against me? And if it moves against me, I would like hold, hoping that it's gonna come back up. But I was never intimidated by the market. Okay, intimidation. It's like the market knows more than I do. Okay, the market is far more superior than I do. I am. And so today, I'm being very honest here. Okay, the market essentially intimidated me into thinking something different about how the market works. Okay,